year's GMF is with Thomas Deave. He comes from Zimbabwe, and he is the regional coordinator for the United Nations Millennium Campaign, but he has been on the board of the Media Institute for Southern Africa, so there is a link to journalism, obviously. And on the other hand, we have Wilfried Bommert. He has served as editor, senior editor for WDR, Europe's biggest public broadcaster based in Cologne, nearby Bonn. And he is also the founder of the Institute for Global Food Security. So the topic we would like to discuss in the next 5 minutes is, are there in all this globalized journalistic world, the overall connected internet, everything as information available everywhere, are there hidden topics in it? So tell us, what are the topics that journalists are not at all caring about in all that information cloud and crowd? Wilfried?
I think for me a big topic is genetically modified crops and hunger. We always hear that hunger can be fighted with genetically engineered crops, with technical ideas, and I believe it cannot be fought with that.
How comes that you can be so precise in saying this is exactly a topic which journalists are not at all carrying out?
I think we will be faced with the topic of hunger in future much more than in the past. And we have to find solution to that problem. And the only solution which is on the table now is genetically modified crop, because the big companies want this solution. And I say this is no solution.
Is this something that you can share? I mean, you're working for the Millennium Campaign, so you have an idea of what are questions and interest points of journalists towards the Millennium Campaign, for instance.
It's very important to point out that we have a hungry billion people out there. Science and technology is advanced, but within the science and technology advances, multinational corporations are in control of the good and the bad. And the media hardly point out the bad elements, because when it comes to control and access, the powerful scientists, business people, and the politicians often collude and hide the information from the media. So at times the media can't really get the hidden story on the bad aspects.
Sounds complicated, and maybe it is. Solution is complicated, problem is complicated. But why journalists are not addressing this issue, in your opinion?
We come from different backgrounds, and depending on where you were trained and the sort of biases you have, you miss the story. I come from a working class background, and at times I keep the focus on people as opposed to the market. Others are trained as business journalists, and they focus on the market and move away from people. So depending on your orientation, you miss the story.
Mm. What is your experience why journalists have so difficult to address these issues or can be interested in it?
I think in the point of genetically modified crops and hunger, it's the problem. Even my colleagues don't know enough about it. They just stick to that what the big companies say and believe it is right. And they don't have even a chance to question it. And when you want to question something, you must know more than the information that's on the market. And that's the problem with colleagues. They are up to date, but they are not deep in the subject.
Mm. Is there a difference, in your opinion, between local journalists, let's say in Africa, especially in Zimbabwe, for instance, which is difficult to say because there's an unfree media scene, but when you look at local journalists and journalists working for international media, for instance, is there a difference in caring or looking at that hidden topics?
I think access to sites of science, for example, is very difficult in the developing countries, and access to information. I came to Germany and visited so many biotechnology centers. In Zimbabwe, I've never visited a single one, let alone in Africa. So it's very difficult to access the places. And then when you look at it, one other thing which is very difficult for us is we don't have the patience when we're following a story. If you go to an organic agriculture scheme, it takes a longer time for the plants to grow. Whereas if you take me to a greenhouse up here in the north, 2-3 weeks, the chicken is up, everything is real fast. So real-time delivery of the story in the north makes it easy to administer journalism as opposed to the situation back home in the south where we're facing major problems.
Is there a need for a common exchange between journalists in the north and the south, between journalists from international media and local media as a kind of, learning process?
Yes, I think so. Looking at what hunger is in Africa, for instance, hunger is rural. hunger is female. We have the situation around the world that we have about 700 million farmers who are hungry because they cannot harvest enough on their fields.
But that should be a day-by-day topic in local media in Africa, for instance, because it is exactly dealing with the situation of the audience. So it is of crucial relevance for the audience.
Ironically, we are so used to the situation that it becomes normal and we forget to cover the story. And that's how some of these topics become so hidden. They're like every day, it's like a tree you see every day and you no longer bother to see how many centimeters it has grown. And I think that's one major challenge which journalists in part of our continent face every day.
A very interesting analysis. You see the trees all the time, so you don't care about. But this is completely different for journalists in Europe. They face something that is unknown to them, right?
When they go to Africa, of course. As long as they are in Europe, it's all known. But when you go to Africa, or for instance to China or to Indonesia, you see a strange world, and you look at this strange world more closely than you do it from here. And then you can say, okay, there might things go right, but you also can see the things which go wrong, and you might see them easier than the journalist which is in the town or which is in the region.
Thomas, thank you very much. Thomas Deave, Regional Director of the United Nations Millennium Campaign, coming from Zimbabwe. Thank you very much being with us. Wilfried Bommert, founder of the Institute for Global Food Security and former senior editor with WDR. Thank you very much. Thank you very much following 5 Minutes for Debate, the short talk format of Deutsche